Wayne Doorband here for the bi-weekly NTP CEED webinar huddle that we hold here at our Northern Colorado headquarters in Loveland, Colorado, both live here at our site and also going out over the web to those of you that are watching. Enjoy what we have for you today. Hi, Elizabeth. Wayne Doorband.
Hi. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
We are having some technical difficulties. Deb is actually out shearing our alpacas. She's the one who's been the admin of this on a regular basis. And we can't get a password to get in our studio. All kinds of things have changed that we're not aware of. So we do have a little bit of an audience here, and they're actually saying that they can hear everything. So we'll just go ahead and start. So you're in Fort Collins, right?
We are.
Yeah. So what's tell me your history and your sort of life in terms of how you got to Fort Collins, what preceded that, and so on.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm one of those folks who are actually from Fort Collins. I was born and raised here, and when I finished high school, I keep saying we, but my husband is also from Fort Collins, and we were high school sweethearts, so a lot of it was we. But after high school, we went away to school. I went to University of Washington in Seattle, and then finished up in Bozeman, Montana. And then we had our first baby in LA, and there's nothing that makes Fort Collins look nice like having a baby in LA. So we moved home in about 10 years ago, and it was really kind of cool to see how nice Fort Collins really is. It's a great place to live, and Colorado's a great place to raise a family. So that's how we ended up here.
So you went to Montana State?
Yep, and I finished up there with a degree in fish and wildlife biology and management.
So were you in the fisheries or the wildlife area?
More the wildlife side.
Did you know any of the profs in the fisheries side?
I had some basic classes over there for sure.
Do you remember whether there was a guy there named Bob White? That's a common name, so.
It is. That doesn't ring a bell, actually. But yeah, we had a couple of different professors on the water side of things with, rivers and lakes and all that. Yeah.
Well, Bob was on my committee when I got my PhD at the University of Idaho, and after a couple of years after that, he went over to Montana State and has been there ever since. He may be retired now, though, but you were there a little while ago, it sounded like. So,
yeah.
So I would have thought he might have been there. Do you remember a professor named Cutler at all in the chemistry? Did you take any chemistry?
No.
Actually, he's better known because his daughter was nationally ranked in tennis. And as an old guy, he was also nationally ranked, probably the best tennis player in the state of Montana.
Wow.
And he's a chemistry prof. And then another guy, Lyle Anderson. Did you ever have a math class from a guy named Lyle Anderson?
No.
And then I'm thinking of one more, McKinsey, who is in political science, again, broad. The reason I know a lot of these profs is that I actually spent an amazing summer in Bozeman a number of years ago when we were a group of 16 professors from 15 different universities all around the country. It was a funny little story I'll tell in a second here. We were studying the impact of coal mining on all the natural resources of Wyoming, or excuse me, of Montana. And it was co-hosted by this guy, Professor McKinsey, and a guy who was a junior high school teacher who ended up becoming the lieutenant governor of the state. And I believe his name was Vincent. And my guess is he's retired now. I have no idea what he's doing. But anyway, we spent almost 2 months there living in dorms, 16 young or older college professors, and it was a really magical time. So the one little story I had was one of those 16 was a lady who was a professor at New York University. She had never driven a car and never seen a cow.
Wow.
She was in her 50s at the time, had never driven a car, and had never seen a cow. So we had a lot of fun with her, because if she hasn't seen a cow, it means she hasn't seen a coyote, and it means she hasn't seen anything that we saw. She hadn't ever seen a fish. She hadn't seen any. It was just amazing. And she was really good sport, but somebody who was, you know, more than just a child who hadn't ever seen most of the things that there are in the West. So,
Wow.
Yeah, interesting. So you came back to Fort Collins how long ago?
About 10 years ago.
Okay. And tell us the history of what you've done in Fort Collins that leads you into what you're doing now on the food level.
Yeah. So about 8 years ago, my husband started and I have to guess a little bit. We started the Lyric Cinema Cafe, which is an independent theater in Old Town Fort Collins, and we show, you know, independent and foreign and some classic films. We serve beer and wine and have kind of a glorified concession stand where we sell, you know, we sell a lot of beer and wine, but a lot of light meals as well. So sandwiches and burritos and cheese plates, etc. And we were working really hard to source locally for that concession stand, and it was really difficult. I was working for an environmental nonprofit in town called Trees, Water, and People, and I was trying to do the sourcing for the theater, and I was running all over the place in my spare time trying to find all these various things for, you know, not a very big operation. And as I was doing that, we found that a lot of the vendors that we were buying stuff from didn't have the ability to serve a lot of smaller customers like our movie theater, and also a lot of the grocery stores and chefs and stuff who had real food needs. We're really struggling to find local options that they could manage.
And that led you now to where you were frustrated not being able to get supplies, and so now tell me the history of what you've done with the sourcing side and where you're at in that now.
Right, and so in 2010 we started writing a business plan for Loco Food Distribution, and we worked on that for about a year and talked to a lot of various vendors and potential customers. And we started off in my basement, actually, pulling together a catalog and of products that would be a good fit, that would be locally grown, locally processed, and then starting to pull together, you know, a customer base. And so we started with chefs and restaurants because they can really make a lot of those decisions in-house right away. And so we started with a lot of non-perishable products, and very quickly they were saying that they wanted to see produce and meats and cheese, and so those things got added to the catalog pretty quickly. And then that leads us to today, 4 years later, where we now have an online catalog. We carry seasonal produce and meats and cheese and grains and beans and all kinds of grocery items, and we serve wholesale customers pretty much across the board. So we serve restaurants and grocery stores, both independent and chain grocery stores. We serve institutions and coffee shops, and institutions include all kinds of things from hospitals and universities to hotels. And we work with some, our website could certainly still use some work. But we serve all kinds of various customers, and we deliver products between Fort Collins and Colorado Springs. So right here along the Front Range of Colorado. So that's what we're up to, and we've grown quite a bit. Food distribution has a very small margin, and we don't actually make anything, and so we have to move a lot of it to make it all worthwhile and to cover all of our bases. So yeah, so that's what we're up to these days.
And what do you hear from the marketplace about how you're being accepted? People like this, and what are you getting from your customer base?
Yeah, we're very much appreciated by folks who've been trying to source locally, because a lot of times it's very tricky for them to coordinate with all of the different vendors that they'd like to work with. And so being able to get it in one order and one delivery is often very helpful. And to expand on that helpfulness, we have, like I mentioned earlier, an online catalog, and we are, it makes it easy for folks to try things out, to be able to see what all is available. And a lot of times when folks do log into our catalog, they're surprised at the breadth of what we are able to offer. So yeah, it's kind of crazy what all folks can find now that we're streamlining it for them.
What do you what have you found about other people doing things like this throughout other parts of the country? And how have you changed what you're doing as you've seen what other people, have you been able to network and get some help from others?
Yeah, so we actually ended up with a grant from the Wallace Center, which is an organization on the East Coast that is working to really support local food systems and as they're emerging. And so they granted 11 different food hubs across the country, and they are now offering a lot of technical assistance and support for the various food hubs. And one of the really useful parts of that is all the networking that's now available. So in May, so just last month, they organized a trip to visit La Montanita, which is a cooperative food hub out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. And so we went down to see what all of they're up to. And at the same time, 20 some odd other hubs from across the country came to Albuquerque as well. So not only did we get to see how another organization does what they do, but we were also able to talk to a whole bunch of other folks about what they're doing across the country. And it's really interesting to see all of the various different models out there and the different hurdles that folks are starting to be working on. I was talking to somebody about, one of the things that we sometimes struggle with on the institutional side is a lot of them are under contract with certain distributors or whatever they have set up already. And so it's kind of hard to get in to some of those institutions. But some of the other food hubs have already done that. They've already jumped those hurdles, and so they have a lot of the processes understood. There's a lot of stuff that they've already understood and they've already done, and it's a lot of the same companies because a lot of them are nationwide. And so being able to follow in other organizations' footsteps is going to be very helpful for establishing a lot of the food systems across the country.
And you said you had to do large volumes to get any kind of a margin yourself. So just so our listeners can get an idea of what a large volume means, I'm sure you keep track. How much, in whatever way you measure it, do you move on a weekly, monthly, daily basis, however? Yeah.
So I kind of like to talk about this in kind of a range of how we've grown. So our first year in 2011, we did $60,000, which is a gross, the gross sales. And then our second year we did just over $500,000, so a little over a little under $500,000. And then the next year we did just shy of $1 million, and then last year we did just over $1.5 million, and this year we'll probably do a little over two. So so it's a lot of products.
You've grown dramatically, yeah. And so if I'm a supplier, how do I participate, sort of the logistics? And then if I'm a buyer, how do I participate the logistics?
Right. So on our website, we have a vendor information packet, and the vendor information packet gives us really all the information we need to get started to see if a vendor will fit within our plan, within what we do. So is it a locally grown or locally processed product? Is it a locally owned company? And is there distribution that they need us to take over, or is it something that they already have their bases covered, or all of that? So making sure that our pricing is all going to be the same and that they fit within the parameters of what our company does. So we have a form for all of that, and then once you're set up, we can either pick up or our vendors some deliver to us as well. And then once their products are listed in the catalog, we may or may not keep that product in stock. And then we work through and see which customers need that product, and we buy it from our customers, we buy it from our vendors and then sell it to our customers. So it's very similar to most wholesale distributors' processes.
And so your warehouse, you've gone from 60,000 to 2 million in sales and more. And what's your warehouse size, and then how quick is your turnover? So how long do you keep things before it's headed out to its user?
Yep. Well, it really varies by product. Our warehouse is about 4,000 square feet, so it's pretty small. We have refrigerated and frozen and dry space. And, our produce is pretty seasonal. So that is stuff that usually we order and deliver same day or very quickly. We don't keep a lot of that stuff in stock. And then there are other things like flour and grains that we order in bulk, and we do keep that in stock and just kind of, deliver it as it's ordered and maintain a certain level of inventory. So it just kind of depends on the product. Some things move in and move out right quick, and then other things we maintain an inventory of.
So, the old adage in distribution is just in time. What you do sell, how much of it is really just in time? It must be a lot, because you're not storing very much. It doesn't sound like.
Yeah, it really, like I said, it really depends on the product. The produce is almost all just in time. And then we have some things that we just move through so quickly, depending on if something's on sale or if something is just really hot right at that particular moment because it's especially, special for some reason. And so it just really depends on what it is. So we maintain a bit of inventory, but certainly there's a lot that we order in time for delivery. And we work with about 120 different vendors.
And if I was a vendor and supplying you, and for whatever reason, the demand for my product went down, you just weren't seeing, would you then tell me, sorry, but we're just not seeing the demand any longer? Or how does that work in your communication with the vendors?
We're working through a lot of that. A lot of times what we'll do is give a vendor a jingle and say, hey, we've noticed that, this stuff isn't moving. Here's your current customer list, and here's when they purchased last. Can you help us touch bases with these folks and make sure it's something they still want? And do you have ideas of other places that you're starting to push things, other places you're starting to push things that we can help follow up with? So, communication is key.
How much of a price difference would there be if I was a vendor and I was going directly to a customer versus sort of using you in the middle? How much is my price going to have to be less?
We try to make sure that the price is actually the same, because if you are a vendor and you're delivering your product, it's not free for you to do that. It does take your time, and it does take your gas, and it does take an awful lot of administrative, work to get that going. And so we try to have parity, but we do work on a 20% margin. And so that does have to be covered in there. And we do encourage our vendors, if they're doing self-deliveries, to charge that and to have that be part of what they earn if they're doing that work themselves.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What products that you really wished you had do you find you have trouble getting? What kinds of things broadly?
Oddly enough, right now here in the West, we're struggling to do really well with meat because a lot of times growers, the ranchers need to be able to sell whole animals, and so that's a large volume. And a lot of times, a lot of our folks are typically looking for really specific cuts, especially grocery stores. So figuring out the whole animal piece of that is kind of a tricky thing. And one of the things they were doing really well in Albuquerque when we visited was a co-op of buyers, where they would get all of these ranchers together and sell as a group, so that then there's consistent, reliable availability. Because a lot of the ranchers we work with, harvest 2 or 3 times a year, and then you end up with frozen products, and a lot of our customers are looking for fresh. And so just the consistency and reliability of the product, and also one of the other things that co-op in Albuquerque works on is a lot of consistency of product. And so they do a lot of testing so that they know that these particular animals are going to have the right tenderness to maintain that brand, that consistency of quality. And so I'm interested to see how we can start something like that here, or how we can tap into theirs down there, because they really aren't that far away. So yeah, figuring that out is actually kind of an interesting conundrum for us. So that's one of our next things to figure out.
So I'm going to even ask my question now as a food provider. I could be a vendor. So we produce probably 3 different kinds of things that you might want to, that maybe we would distribute through you. One of them is meat. So we're alpaca producers, and we have a very strong alpaca meat business. The problem is, as you said, we do have to sell shares. Now, it doesn't mean we have to sell an entire animal, but we can sell the least that we've ever done is an 1/8 share. So
Yeah.
we would sell an 1/8 share, and we would tell the buyer, you really can't get your 1/8 share until we sell the other 7/8, because you and 7 others are going to own that animal. And then you're going to tell us, your instruction to us, the seller, is would you process that for us? And we'd
Right.
say, yes, we could certainly do that. And then we're going to ask the 8, what would you like? I'm going to make it real simple. You'd all like it to be all ground beef. Great. That's what we'll do. So we'll process the entire animal to be ground beef. Then you own it. And now, instead of getting a live animal, you're going to get your 1/8 share of that. Now, with an alpaca, very different than a cow, that's 1/8 of 60 pounds. So that's about how much we get that is deboned. So what is that math? That's 4.8 pounds. That could be somebody's dinner, or for a restaurant, that could be probably all they'd sell in a night. We don't sell very much that's fresh, but we frankly could if we had somebody like you that could help us work through that. So, we sell our animals all over the country, quite honestly. Our biggest customers in California, and again, he buys whole animals. So he's buying the animal and he's telling us, I want you to slaughter it. And we say, okay, great. He says, well, do you have somebody to do that? Yes, we do. All right, we'll do that for you. We're going to charge you this so much for, all that's, and it's all together in one price. So he already knows obviously what it is. And then he tells us what he wants for the cuts. We prepare them and then we ship them to him. And, but again, it's not easy, but there is a way to get around it if you work through it. So,
yeah.
We also are egg producers. We're hearing, and we're just really getting started in that area. So we produce about 75 a day right now, and in about a month we'll be producing about 800 a day. We have young birds that'll just start producing in the next 2 weeks to a month. And we're hearing that, and we market through farmers markets, and we have on site right now, but we're hearing that avian flu is really creating a challenge on a nationwide basis. Are you seeing any of that? Or is egg production getting tough yet?
We work with all really small local producers, and so we haven't seen that yet. The price is going up in the marketplace, and it does make a lot of the local eggs certainly a lot more competitive. So if our local producers are able to protect their animals from from this problem, then I think they will be able to get exactly what they need to make it worthwhile. Because we all know that smaller scale production is just a little bit more expensive than your conventional production, and so it'll be very interesting to see how that shakes out, especially if, like I said, our farmers can protect their flocks.
And then, do you sell any non-food items, or is it all food items?
We just started selling some non-food items. We carry 2. Both are on the cleaning side. One is a foaming hand soap and a all-purpose cleaning solution that's actually made out of the byproducts from recycling veggie oil into biodiesel. So that's kind of cool. It's made up of Breckenridge. And so that was our first one. And then our second one is actually another cleaning product. And it's a locally made one out of Denver that is a little bit more environmentally friendly than a lot of the mainline ones. And we're just now starting with that one. So we're interested to see kind of how that shakes out and how we can actually be helpful for a lot of folks. It was interesting to learn that a lot of the big mainline distributors do in fact work with folks like Ecolab who provide all those chemicals. for restaurants and institutions for their cleaning purposes. So that was kind of interesting to see.
And did you make the decision to take those two on because you became convinced that there was a buying group, or does the vendor come to you and say, here, I've got customers already, rather than doing it the way I've been doing, distributing, I'd really rather go through you? How does that work? How does your interaction with a supplier work in that way?
Yeah, both of them actually came to us. They were trying to figure out how to better serve their marketplaces. And both of them were just kind of interesting fits to see how, they do actually kind of fit with what we're doing. And the cleaning products, the second one, it was very interesting just because their margins are so much higher than you would normally get on food products. And so that was kind of a nice thing as well, just because, we talked about how you have to do a lot of stuff to make things worthwhile. And because our margins are so small, but with these cleaning chemicals, they're a little bit higher. So that's very helpful in that, supporting the base of the operation.
Did they already have customers, or did you jointly go out and find customers for them?
They already have some customers, but most of the work we're going to do together, we're going to go out and find together.
And is that fairly typical that it becomes a joint marketing effort of you and your vendors?
Often. When you're the fifth salsa, we try to make sure that we are taking over existing distribution for you. When it's something completely different that fills a hole in our catalog, it's a lot easier for us to operate within our mix.
Let's go down the road 5 years, and we are now having this conversation. What do you hope the business looks like in 5 years?
Yeah. So I think in 5 years we'll be quite a bit bigger, just because we have to continue to grow. I think that there may be more than one distribution center. Right now we're based here in Fort Collins, which is the very top of our territory. And so it would probably be very helpful to have a center in Denver, and also to be serving more of Colorado, because right now we just go from Fort Collins to Colorado Springs. It'd be nice. And we're probably going to be adding, Cheyenne and Laramie and Steamboat, and potentially going up the I-70 corridor, but certainly not this year.
And you don't do any delivery. Everybody's picking up from you. Is that correct?
No, we deliver everything.
Deliver everything. Okay. I missed that totally. So you're truly a warehouse in that way. So you are delivering everything. So wow, that really means if you're going to expand to Steamboat and I-70 corridor, your delivery process has got to be.
Yep. So we deliver everything, like I said, from Fort Collins to Colorado Springs. Our products can come from a 400-mile radius. So that even includes western Nebraska and Kansas and the western slope of Colorado and everything. But we deliver, Fort Collins to Colorado Springs, and we use refrigerated cargo vans because they're cheap, they're really easy to use, they're easy to maintain, and we can keep a driver busy all day long with one of them. So that's what we've been up to.
Are those contract drivers or are those employees?
Those are employees.
And how about that side of your model? Are most of your staff employees, or do you use independent contractors, or how does that work?
No, they're all staff. They're regular staff. And it started with 2 of us, and now I think we're a team of 13 or 14. I can't remember if I'm counting myself or not.
So let's switch a little bit. And I think you probably got a questionnaire that we use as we interview folks, and we'll make this short this time. This has all been really exciting, really well known. And I want to end up by asking you what kinds of things you might want to talk about that I haven't even asked about. But what do you think happened in your youth that has led you to this place? Is there incidents? Is there anything you can think of? Obviously, wildlife management is a little different than this. And then you mentioned your husband. Is he involved in a strong of a way as you? Is this both of your full-time situations really now, and so on?
Yeah. So last question first. So my husband has his together to run, and that's what he does. He's getting ready to move it and expand it. So that's his thing. And Loco is all mine. I do this, he does that. But we're very helpful in thinking through a lot of things with each other. So we're a good team. We got different partners. And then I was always interested in wildlife habitat conservation and how do you do a lot of that preservation work. And so that is why I majored in fish and wildlife management. And I found that I could either work for the government or environmental nonprofits. And I didn't want to work for the government. And environmental nonprofits do a lot of really great work, but it's really hard to be really effective. And so a lot of you look at food production, especially here in the West, there's a lot of ranching, how do you manage our food, the availability of land and water. And so I think Loco Foods really ties in actually pretty well with a lot of the environmental stuff that brought me here. Kind of really, yes. But somewhat connected, I'll say.
When you were in Bozeman, and I don't know the timing of this for him, but there's an amazingly well-known now environmental steward that grew up in Bozeman. Do you know who that name is?
I'm not sure right off what you're thinking.
Doug Tompkins.
Okay, yeah.
And there's another guy named Morrison, who I can't think. I think it's Tom Morrison, both of them. But there's a book called Eco Barons that profiles both of them, and they're both originally spent time, or either where I think Morrison was born there and grew up there, or maybe even went all the way through college. Tompkins actually wasn't. He was born in the Bay Area, but actually spent time there then in his life. But anyway, it's a great kind of a group there. What was there? Speaking, that's leading to a question. Is there a person in the sustainability conservation movement that you can mention that's had an influence on you, or a book or anything of that nature that you think that our group should get some knowledge of?
I don't know if there's anyone in particular, although when people do ask me that, I typically do think about Omnivore's Dilemma and Michael Pollan's work on that. And I think that it's really a great way of really explaining what's going on in our food system. And I think that it was really a lot of the impetus of what has happened. In my own meeting here in Fort Collins, there was an organization called Be Local, and it just went away a few years ago. But a lot of the work they did really emphasized the importance of thinking about the economy from a point of view and trying to affect your own community by purchasing locally and supporting local businesses. And I feel like a lot of what we do here at Loco is really standing in the culture that work with around our core. So I think.
And I know that group, and I know the people who are instrumental in it. And it's unfortunate, like you said, that it's not around, but it shows how, honestly, how important it is to broaden the reach, because I know the two people who were so instrumental, and they both decided to go on and do different things, and there just wasn't anybody to fill in the gaps. And so.
And we were really lucky, actually, because Jill Marie came and worked with me.
Did she? Okay.
Yeah, so it was really helpful in getting things out of my basement into our first warehouse.
Right. And you know, I know her, and then I know the Gillilands and others because of alpacas also too. So and they just, their lives went different directions, but the movements that should have stayed. And so we should learn from that and probably be training up or somehow and motivating and enthusing other people to keep things. There's actually now an interesting movement that came out of that in the little town of Berthoud, which is where we are doing this broadcast from. It's called Berthoud Local, and it's actually thriving. And we have our own farmers market in Berthoud Local, and have done farm to table meals and other different things. So, you know, it could be done. And yet, and again, there's maybe a bigger group of people now. We kind of realize that Be Local sort of went through that. So.
Yeah, well, and I'm familiar with another cluster that's in asking
Right.
and I'm actually on the board of that right now. We finally got that hired and just hired an executive director, so I think there's going to be a lot of good work coming out of that. It takes a while for that, but I think we're really progress.
A couple other questions, and then we'll wrap it up. Even though we started a little bit late, I do want to be good for our timing here. Can you think of something negative that happened in your business life that at the time you thought, oh wow, this is not good, but now as you look back, it actually wasn't so bad, and matter of fact, you can see some real positive that came out of it. Our listeners always want to hear those kinds of stories.
Well, as far as the positives that came out of it, I'm not so sure. But one of the things that I know a lot of businesses, a lot of businesses really struggle with is financing. And because with the great options out there, and so a lot of folks really are tapping into their own family resources or their own personal resources as a key way to start a lot of these businesses. Banks aren't interested. It's often a big problem. I know that particular house, but that. A hard thing for a lot of small businesses. One of the things my talent that was iffy at the time and has taken out is competition at a Boulder local. And they were difficult competition in that they weren't very collaborative on the food stuff, and they were quite negative. And it was interesting to see how we as a team represented ourselves versus our competition, and I'm really happy about how we came together and never negative about it, and we really about what we do, and so I think we learned a lot from it, and I think it was beautiful, and I think it has to be careful. But then they did go out of business in December, so I would never wish that on anybody, but it has been an interesting trek for us, that's been an interesting thing.
So do you have other quote competition within your market area?
A little bit, but not so much direct competition. There are huge organizations, very service brands, local companies work with our small distributors. But it's not really a direct competitor for the most part. Sometimes it is, but really we serve a different niche, different customers, and kind of the same thing.
Can you think of a tool, whether it's some physical tool, whether it's something on the computer, whether it's a book or something that over the last, let's say, short period of time, I won't define how long, but you've begun to use that has really, you can just think of it and go, whoa, it really helps me, that our audience would like to hear about. And again, it could be digital, it could be a physical tool, it could be anything.
Really, the big thing for us is our software. It offers a catalog that faces out, so everybody can log in and view our catalog over that way. And the back end of it manages our inventory, our customers, our vendors, our salespeople, commission. It does everything that we would really need to do, and including block tracking. Into it as well. So I think it's really interesting to be a young distribution company because a lot of them with systems that they had to move over to digital systems, and we were able to start with a digital system.
And is that a commercially available digital system, or did you have it custom made for you?
No, I am a software engineer.
Well, I mean, even have a software do it for you, but is it something other businesses could buy? And
yes,
can you mention it, or would it be a price?
Oh yeah. Oh no, the company is called Yes, and they're out of Connecticut, and the product is called Entree.
Okay. And what other ones did you check out and research at all that maybe people listening would think about, and maybe why did you decide on this one versus others? Can you remember that?
I do. We did a lot of research and tried out a lot of different things, and at the time we found that there were kind of two different kinds of softwares. And this was about 3 years ago, and I think that the market has changed a bit now. But at the time, there was kind of your software options that did a lot of the recording and the inventory management and tracking that we were really less. Or there was local food distribution software that was very beautiful, warm, and fuzzy on the customer end. So really clear about where products were from and how they were grown. But not very strong on the recording and the other back-end functions that we thought we really did. And so we were doing that with, less on the customer side because of our team add that. And more back-end heavy. So we're really pleased with what we chose. My understanding is that a lot of the software that we were looking at have come a long way in being able to offer that back-end support, but we're happy with where we are.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any other specific questions. Why don't we turn it over to you, and anything else you'd like to tell our audience? Again, we usually get a pretty nice replay kind of audience, and we'll be putting slides in of different things that you had already sent to us and such. Again, I apologize for our technical situation, but anything you want to just add, just please do so.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this is an interesting series of webinars that you've been posting. I much for this. So yeah. I don't have a whole lot to add. It's really interesting to see how a lot of the local food movement is coming along. People are starting to understand the value of it. And also to understand how some things are more expensive when they're produced on a smaller scale and value around them, food basically. So it's not understood across the board, of course. Not more expensive, but it's always really interesting to talk to from all different industries to hear how they view local and what their goals are around adding it to their menus or their stores.
And can you tell us how people, let's say that somebody wants to be a customer, how do they get a hold of you? And then tell us a little bit about the connection with the nonprofit you've just gotten on the board on too for the food cluster. So,
sure. So to become a customer, we have our customer packet online, and it's a pretty basic form. So we go to the delivered to all that kind of fun stuff, and it's pretty easy. Does not take long, and once we set up, one of our salespeople checks in to see what all you're looking for and to give you your catalog login. And it's really as simple as that. If there's a big thing that our customers are looking for, that's what we're here to do. We're here to help them find that. Hopefully it's something we already have. But yeah, it's a pretty simple process. And then as far as the northern part of the food cluster goes, we're trying to figure out how to increase access to local food and how to continue to strengthen the local food movement in northern Colorado. So we're not really sure what our products are going to be, but we're going to figure out a lot of the marketplace. Currently, one of the projects we do manage is the winter market in downtown Colorado.
Which Be Local used to do, correct? So you've taken that over.
Yep. Just set over and kind of go into the really important part of the local food availability thing in Fort Collins. And so the next thing is we go to the next is going to be education and outreach. It's going to be around marketplace, it's going to be around policy. So there's a lot to like around yourself. We're excited. We have a new executive director who has will be really nice because a lot of our are more food oriented. Farmers, we have a distributor, we have household, like a big CDC and folks no nonprofit join us
And do you have is there a website for the Northern Colorado Food Cluster?
Yes, and I believe it's the Loco Food Cluster.
We'll find it and show it on the screens when we do the replay. But I just wanted to make sure whether there was one. Okay.
Yes, there is.
Well, I don't have any other questions. I'm looking at the screen to see if any of the viewers do. If you would, maybe we're going to go offline here in just a second. I have a couple just offline questions to ask you if you've got just a second, but we really thank you so much. This has been awesome. Local food is our passion, and we firmly believe that unless we solve really the situation of buying most of our food in the United States from 2,000 miles away, we could have some really major food security issues for a lot of different reasons. And it just makes so much sense from a carbon footprint, from a calorie footprint, all the other things, labor, you name it, that food gets produced and sold and distributed locally like you're doing. So big applause for you, and we really appreciate that. And thank you. And we'll get the replay out of this we add the slides within the next day or two for anyone watching. If you want to tell other people, the actual replay will be available right away, but it won't be yet edited. Brian will be working on that over the next couple of days. And we'll make sure we get you a copy of it, Elizabeth, so that you can get you a link and so you can use it in any way that you'd like. And it's been awesome. I always enjoy this, but this has been particularly fun today. Thanks.
Thank you. You as well.
And I'm going to just log off and say goodbye to everybody. And we'll talk to everybody again in 2 weeks when we have our next live presentation of our Northern Colorado Huddle.